Welcome, everybody, to BioTalk with Bales. I am so excited about this podcast, and I'm so excited that you guys are here. This has been a long time coming for those who've been in my community for quite some time now, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into all things as you guys have been asking and waiting and maybe praying for. So, we're going to dive into holistic health, what PEPs are, lots of different things that I feel like are beneficial for you guys to really, come from my perspective at least, learn from me, my experience, my growth, all of those kinds of things I think would be beneficial for you guys. So we're going to dive together. But first, I'm going to obviously give you guys a disclaimer too. In this podcast, the information shared is for educational and information purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any sort of disease. Nothing discussed should be considered medical advice or substituted for guidance from your physician or any other qualified healthcare professional. Topics may include things like health, holistic health, nutrition, supplements, peptides, and emerging research. Many of these areas are still evolving, and some products discussed may not be intended for human use as only for research purposes only. With that being said, we're going to start diving in a little bit more. Specifically, this podcast, I'm going to be sharing really about my journey, how I really got the title of Biohack with Bales, and just a little bit more about my upbringing and what really got me to this point. So, I feel like we should really start with, first of all, who I am. If for those that don't know me, maybe I'm a first podcast in your ear, really in the health realm. My name is Bailey and I am from Minnesota. I really grew up in a very holistic and loving home. My parents, specifically my mom, grew up very crunchy, as most of you guys know, and that's something that really propelled my journey for myself, really looking into different alternatives that would help me in my own health and the problems that I really had. The first thing that I feel like when I look back at my journey was my mom looked at getting coconut oil from a farmer's market back in probably 2012, I want to say somewhere in that time frame. I remember her saying we can only get these jars from this certain place, and obviously, looking hindsight 2020, you can get coconut oil almost everywhere. It's kind of a good perspective of what my mom was like, or was. She's obviously still living, but what she was really like back in the day to find things that would be helpful for not only myself, but my brother and my family for our health. And now we can get coconut oil everywhere. And so it makes me think that she was always ahead of the curve, right? And she always says that even to this day. She's like, Bailey, I'm always ahead of the curve. You should know this by now. So at some point, I would love to have her on my podcast for you guys to hear her perspective as well and what she kind of, went through growing up, and then also being able to give her health perspective too, because she's just very crunchy and very holistic too. That's really where my journey began, trying to figure out, what is healthcare and what does healthcare mean to me, right? And I think that when we look at our system and different things, I truly believe that I've been failed in multiple ways. And that was really, really tough for me just because, you look to a doctor for something and you're not able to get the feedback that you were really looking for, right? And so I really took a lot of matters into my own hands, which really leads me into, I feel like, this big conversation. The biggest question I get asked every single day is, how did you get into the health space? How did you get into the peptide space? How did you get into this whole entire world, right? And so when I look back, I actually had a really pivotal point in my life where I was just at my heaviest that I was. Reason being is because I lived in a house that had previous really bad mold exposure. And I've talked a lot about this just in general in my TikTok platform, in my TikTok community, in my school community, all of those things. And I found for myself that this mold exposure was really giving me all these negative side effects, such as weight gain, acne, and bloating. I was at the heaviest weight I ever was, which was 213 pounds, which is honestly crazy to think about because when I look back at pictures, I didn't really associate myself with being someone of that size. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where I was. And, I had to have those hard conversations with myself of saying, okay, like there's got to be something deeper going on here. And I don't necessarily know what that is. And I just got to figure it out for myself because I wasn't getting help from the places that I felt like I needed to get help from. And so I had to take matters into my own hands, right? Like, as a majority of us do, I feel like in this space. The first thing that I did, I actually ran into a friend of mine, and she's lovely, one of my really good friends. And I saw her, she was, through a compound pharmacy. This is actually where everything kind of started. This was the gateway for me. And that's what I really like to say is Terzepatide was the gateway for me to be able to really open into this world, into everything that was kind of happening. I talked to her and she looked phenomenal, by the way. Like she looked great. She was also, struggling with different things. And I was like, wow, like you look fantastic. Like, what are you doing? Right. And I think that that's just the normal curiosity that you have as a friend and as a person who is doing really well. Right. And I think that people in your life should uplift you and, want to strive for better. And that's what I was doing here in the situation was like, I want to be better. And I feel like I've done every single thing you can imagine. So she introduced me. She went through a compound pharmacy at the time. She did tirzepatide, looked amazing. I was like, you know what? I have no idea what this is. And this was almost 3 years ago, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. So, there was only a few compounding pharmacies out there that were really, prevalent at that time. And I was like, you know what? I have tried every single thing you can imagine, every single thing. I did carnivore. I've done ketosis. I've done no sugar, no carbohydrates, fasting, working out 6 times a week, hit cardio, like being a runner. Like I've done every single thing you can imagine and I wasn't getting the success that I wanted, right? So hindsight 2020, I was at a point in my journey where I was like, I will do anything. I will do anything, even if that includes, going through a compound pharmacy and doing all this stuff that I know nothing about. I'm willing to try it. And I think that everyone kind of hits a point, and people that I talk to, especially in my daily life, are going through these things. They're like, I finally am at my wits' end and I'm at rock bottom. Right. And so that for me was my rock bottom. And I had such a great friend in my life that was like, you should just try it. So I tried it, and to be fair, it changed my life. Tirzepatide was one of the most profound things that completely changed my life for me. And nobody knew about this. Like, this was something that very minimal people talked about. There was maybe only a few people that I saw, talking about these things, their experience with it. And there was actually no women talking about this when I decided to start making content on TikTok. I was like, okay, well, and we'll get into that a little bit later too. But all to say, I didn't have anywhere to look. I just decided to trust my friend, trust her opinions. And so my first month when I did tirzepatide, I lost 11 pounds. Blew me away. Truthfully, took my breath away. I was like, there's some secret sauce here. Like, I don't know what that is, but I felt like it was something that I wanted to dive deeper into because not only for myself growing up, I have that holistic background with my mom, but I went to college. I wanted to be a physical therapist. I wanted to be a dental hygienist. I wanted to be an athletic trainer. All to say, those were none of the paths that I went down, but they were all very impactful in the things that I do now. Like it really gave me such a great scope and a wide scope for health and nutrition and for anatomy and for biology and for the body, right? So I have this really well-rounded background of understanding what our bodies are capable of, and then you put a peptide into this, right? Or you put any sort of thought behind what our bodies are capable of. There's so much underneath the hood, and I say that all the time. There's always so much more we can learn. I'm always a sponge. I'm always someone where I feel like I can continue to keep growing and learning, and I feel like that's a place that we all should be, right? So really changed my life. That was the gateway for me. Lost 11 pounds, and I said, wow, I need to dive deeper into this because there's something here that I am not aware of, even with my holistic background and my approach and growing up and all the things that I was choosing to do. So that's where it kind of led me. I started there and I said, I'm just going to dive head first. And I think a lot of people find themselves being in this position too, where one thing works for them and then they dive off the deep end and they're like almost addicted to this stuff, right? Like learning about themselves, growing, what can this do, how it communicates, all of these things, right? So that's where I was. And looking back, this was about, 2.5, almost 3 years ago that I ran tirzepatide and then I decided to dive into all these other compounds, which was fantastic, right? So kind of learning about that, growing in that, and that's for a whole nother episode too. But that's really how I started my journey and really kind of dove headfirst into the peptide space, which I found to be really amazing and very profound. Kind of diving into our next topic as well that I feel like a lot of people have asked me about, or what the things that I really care about too is like my crunchy holistic perspective, different things that I care about. And this is something of a topic that I feel like most people don't maybe go into, but I feel like I want my podcast to be something where it's not just about peps, but lifestyle is such a big component when it comes to this. And being able to have a good foundation there is only going to provide you with more success and allow you to be able to move farther along in your journey. So for me, some of the crunchy things that I feel like have really helped me have been the things that I consume, the things that I wear, the different supplements that I take. Like there are so many different things that I feel like are very beneficial for every single person to implement. I also really encourage blood work. That is something that has really been profound in my journey, even in the past year. So I think diving into that is definitely a great perspective and a great place to start for a lot of you, because I was someone where I didn't like going to the doctor. I did not like going to get my physical. I feel like I got nothing really out of it. But even in the past couple years, getting consistent blood work, really seeing that, result, seeing that success that I wasn't necessarily getting from someone else, I feel like it's so much more beneficial now because I have a purpose for it. Really looking into that, diving deeper, seeing my blood work. I knew something was wrong. And that kind of ties me back to my first original conversation we had too. But I found out that I had chronic mold exposure, which was really leading to high inflammation, overall weight gain, acne. And those are still things that I deal with on a daily basis. And I'm very open about that because I think that a lot of people are kind of holding things behind closed doors. And I always say this with like the utmost respect is that people come to me on a daily basis as being biohack with bales with the things that they hide behind closed doors and they want to share them with me. It's something that I definitely do not take lightly. It's something that I hold with the utmost respect because I know how hard it is to be able to, share the things that you're not super proud of. Right. And I think that being able to be strong enough to come to someone like arms wide open, just everything open to them and for like to be accepted. And I see that all the time in this space where people are just really scared of everything, right? So I feel like I've always created a great space for people to do that, and I feel like you guys have allowed me to create that community here. But I hold that with the utmost respect too. It's been really cool to see just people transform and then change, and then also being able to grow and find themselves deeper. So, the next topic that I feel like is really prevalent and one that I get asked all the time too is, how did you start making content on TikTok, or why did you start making content on TikTok? And what's funny is, and a lot of people know this about me, is I never wanted to. And as I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, that people share the things that they're really not so proud of to me, I hold that with the utmost respect. That was where I was for a long period of my life, was like, I'm not really proud of where I am. And I'm kind of, keeping things behind closed doors. But at the same time, I knew that I had something that I needed to share that other people needed to hear. And it's not in a way of condescending, of like, I have something that you need to know about because I'm so knowledgeable. I'm the first one to raise my hand in a room and say that I don't know everything. But I will say that there are things that I learned not only in my upbringing, as you guys have learned in my childhood, but then also in this whole experience, that if I was not sharing something and me not seeing other, females, for example, on social media talking about this, I knew there was a area of opportunity and that there was a need somewhere. And this is actually a funny story. So I'll kind of start this here because I feel like a lot of people may have heard this already, but literally decided to start making content in my in-laws basement. It was not a perfect time. We were in a transitional period of our lives, trying to find a house to live in. And I just felt like this really big calling in my life, and I was like, someone needs to hear this. So I started to make content in my in-laws basement, and I told my husband that I'm just going to do it. Why not? Right? Like, the worst thing that you can ever do is do something and it falls right on your face and you fail time and time and time again. But I'm obviously a believer in, like, the more times you fail, the closer you are to your success. I shared with my husband and I shared with my mom that I'm obviously doing these journeys and all this kind of stuff. They were the only two people that really knew about this at this time. And I told my husband I'm going to make a TikTok account, made the TikTok account, and I'm like, I'm going to make a few videos, made a few videos. They One of them, I believe, did pretty well. But I'll say this: one, you could talk about anything and everything you wanted to. As most of you guys know, like a few years ago, you could say anything basically off the cuff and you'd be fine. But I made a couple videos. I went to bed that night and I told my husband, I was like, I have 8 followers who loved my content, 8 people. And I will never forget that moment where I talked to him and I honestly felt like there was such a purpose there. 8 people. Like, I didn't care, I think, when I started making content, if it was actually going to impact people. It was really therapeutic for me. And yeah, that may sound selfish from a perspective, but to be honest, that's exactly what I needed at that point in time in my life. It was something that I needed to share to, like, hopefully relate to other people, and maybe that's something that I wanted in return, was that relatability and that connection and that community that I just wasn't getting from my outside world that I typically would get. So the social media world really gave me that community that I was looking for. But I'll just say, I went to bed, I had those 8 followers, and then I woke up that next day and it was like 40. And I was like, babe, you will never believe it. I was like, there's 40 people who loved my video that I posted last night. And then the next day and the next day and the next day, I just continued to double and double and double. And I was like, I knew that I was in the right place. Like, I think everyone kind of has that gut feeling when they feel like one, they're meant for more, but then also when they know that there's a purpose behind something and you need to be sharing something. That's exactly how I felt. It's exactly like this deeper rooted purpose that I have in my life, not only because a lot of you guys know that I'm a Christian and I love the Lord, and that's the reason why I do what I do, is to help people and to give people like that life, their joy, like just so many things back in their life that they're maybe just lacking. So hopefully people can gather that or get that from my content too. But I just knew that I was sitting on something that was purposeful, and I think that whenever I made content, and that's something I did in my previous jobs too, with social media management. I started a business at 21, really doing social media management for different clients and people all over the world. So I knew that that was purposeful, but it was creative and it was great, but it wasn't giving me like that full fulfillment that I was looking for. And so when I got that feeling of making this content and felt like it was actually making a difference, that's how I knew I was on something really great. And I always tell my husband, Dalton, that I felt like I was sitting on a gold mine, because I was like, there's truly so many people that I need to keep digging out and digging out and digging out and learning. And that's what I really enjoy about this space, though, too, is you're never really stagnant. You're able to continue to keep growing. You're able to continue to keep learning. Things are always evolving, always being really innovative. And I think just being a sponge is the best thing to be, especially in this space. So it's been really cool to see like my reasoning for why I wanted to do content and like see it hindsight 2020, because now I have a community of like 60, almost 80,000 people. I've been banned like 5 times now. So, accumulating all of those accounts over time definitely adds up. But I'll just say, like, no number could ever make me feel the purpose that I have, even when I had those 8 people who supported what I was doing. And it wasn't even about that, because I was super scared to share my content. I was scared of, all the things that every single content creator typically is scared of: is how will people perceive me? What's the feedback? Are people going to judge me? Is this something that is actually of substance? And is it purposeful? And so I had to have those hard conversations with myself for a long time. Not even a long time. I felt like it was like a quick decision of like a week, I'm going to do it. And I've always said to like having that expectation, and then actually executing, like having that space be very, very minimal, is always going to help you be more successful in life. And I just truly believe that. And it's also going to lead you to your purpose and what you're called to do. I definitely had, that epiphany that one night. I'm like, I'm just going to do it and make content. And so it's been really cool to see that transform. And then obviously I've made so many friends. I have friends who are more like me than I never knew on the opposite side of, the world, than anyone I could have next door to my house. And I think that that's the most impactful thing that I could ever have, is not only do I have friends and people that I believe that align with me, but I genuinely believe that I'm making an impact no matter what I do and whatever I say, right? And I hold a lot of like weight with that. I definitely don't take that lightly, because I know that there's a lot of people who are very well respected and have a lot of great knowledge, and I am not the smartest person in the room, but I do believe that I had something to bring, not only just for the space, but also for just women. Because I couldn't find that when I started my journey. I couldn't find a single person that related to me, that went through the same things that I had, and, could just give me some sort of recommendation or help. Well, have you tried working out 5 days a week? Well, have you tried, not having carbohydrates? Well, have you tried this particular fad diet? It's like, it's really frustrating, right? To be in that position and then continually having no support anywhere. So that's why I decided I felt like I needed to make content, because I wasn't getting what I wanted out of it. That's why I have a school community now of hundreds of people. I have obviously different platforms on YouTube and TikTok and, Facebook at one point in time. Instagram has been banned like 5 times. Like, it's just the name of the game, the nature of the space. But I truly believe if we weren't providing value in some sort of way, then we would be able to do whatever we wanted to do. But since we're actually going through these processes, as a lot of people have, which is really unfortunate, I just believe that we're making an impact somewhere and it's actually helping people. The biggest blessing that I've had a privilege of actually doing, and what I love sharing about on this podcast as well, is people share their wins, their successes, their milestones. Like I cannot tell you how many guys or how many times I have cried listening or reading your guys' text saying, this has helped me so much. This has been so impactful for me. I never knew that I could do this. I felt stuck here. My mental, whatever, was not great. Like, there's been so many avenues that I never thought that I would be able to touch unless I started making content. And I think I'm such a big advocate for making content for almost anyone because I'm nobody special. And I say that all the time too. Is like, I'm no one special. You don't have to have some sort of special gift, some sort of special quality, some sort of, hierarchy to be able to make content because it doesn't require anyone special to create something special. I say that all the time. So, especially if that's someone like you where you're like, I just feel like I need something more, even if you just want a community of people too. Like, I've definitely built that here, but I'm definitely not someone to say to just like stop and never not do that. Like, pursue whatever you feel like is right for you. And obviously, we're talking in the holistic terms here of, pursuing your health. Like, I learned something in college that I felt like was very profound to me too. But my volleyball coach at the time would say me first. And that was like the term me first. And it comes off as maybe a little bit selfish and maybe a little bit like, oh, like I have to protect myself and I got to do things that I want to do first. It's like, no, it's actually loving yourself so much to a point where you are able to take care of yourself and do the things that you need to do to, in theory, survive, right? Because we're all humans and we got to do the things to survive and have a healthy life and lifestyle. But that really stuck with me throughout the years is the me first and putting ourselves first so we can better serve others. And I truly believe that that's what my purpose has been here is to really help serve others in the best way that I can and the best way that I know. So it's been really fun and cool to see just myself even grow in the space and learn different things and connect with people who are also very well educated as well in the space. So it's been fun to see. But that's really the main reason why I started making content is because I just knew that there was a need somewhere and I decided to just put all of my bearings to the side, all of the thoughts I had in my own brain to the side so that someone else could benefit from my journey. And that's why I really share content on a daily basis too, is because there's people who are starting day one. And that might be you who's listening to my podcast today, is you are a day oneer, you are a day 20, you are, 2 years deep, right? Like there's people all over the spectrum trying to figure out like, okay, what is next for me? And that's why I continue to keep sharing content is because my day one looks a whole lot different than my day, like, 620, right? Like it's crazy how much has changed, but I think that's the best part about it is we're allowed to change and we're allowed to figure out who we really are and continue to keep growing in that way. So I hope that you guys have really kind of gathered that too from even me and understanding me a little bit more. But that's why I started making content and it's been the best fun I've ever had. I always tell people that this is the best job I ever like that ever fell in my lap. Many of you guys know that I actually left like all of my other jobs and my clients, things that I was doing because there was such a demand here that I was not being able to serve my community as well as I wanted to. I was completely fried out trying to do 15 other things and then this on top of it. And so it's been so freeing to be able to get to a point in my journey now, which is why I'm obviously making a podcast too, because I have more time to do these things. But it's been so cool to see, like, I never anticipated that what I do now would be like my full time job. And it's the most fun I've ever had. It's the most creative I've ever been. It's the most freeing thing and the most purposeful thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And so, if you ever have a calling, and maybe it's a takeaway for you guys too, if you're kind of in a spot like this, or maybe you're just not exactly where you want to be in life, and this is obviously more motivational, you guys will gather this from me in my podcast, is I'm just a motivational person. I always will give my best piece of advice or things that I've learned because I feel like it really has propelled me and given me good perspective in what I'm doing. But don't ever think that you're not good enough to be able to pursue anything that you want to do. Don't feel like you can never not change. You can always change your mind at any time. I always say if things were to fall on my face tomorrow, I could always go be a recruiter. I could always go be a social media manager. I could always go do something that gave me purpose, right? But at the end of the day, like I think purpose is something that fills your cup and it also fills other people's cups too. So that's been really cool to see. And basically, the main reason why I make content, I know I'm kind of reiterating a little bit too, but I feel like it's important to see that perspective and also leave you guys with some sort of encouragement as well that I'm nobody special. Like, I feel like it's really crazy when people are like, Bailey the educator, biohack with Bales, like, you're just so smart. And I popped in a live even the other day and someone was like, wow, like we talk about you all the time. And someone I didn't even really know, someone I don't even really talk to that much or, am acquainted with, they might pop in my life every now and then, but they were like, we love you over here. And I had no idea, right? So I think the impact that you have on one single decision can completely change your life. And that's exactly what it's done for mine in more ways than one. And I've shared that in so many different TikToks and not podcasts, obviously, because this is my first one, but going to be sharing more of that with you guys too. That's been really really cool. But I think we are going to finish off with a few Q&As that I've asked my school community. So also just to kind of frame this for you guys too, what this podcast will really look like, and maybe I should have gone over this in the beginning, but you're getting it now, is we're going to be talking about different, you know, topics basically when it comes to holistic nutrition, lifestyle, even different supplements, things that I have done. We could even go into blood work. Obviously we can go into peps. I am going to keep the peps though specifically really in my school community as much as humanly possible, or even just like deeper dives really. We're still going to be talking about them in the pod, but if you guys are part of my school community, you will be getting an extra episode. In theory, I would like to do this, so don't hold me accountable, but I'm going to try my best, is giving you guys an extra episode per month that's going to dive deeper into particular topics that you guys want, and I will be putting like polls and Q&As and things like that. So that's kind of where the podcast is going to go, and we will have guest speakers on probably at some point, but for now it's going to just be me, kind of like the single host right now. I feel like it's fun to do co-host at some point, but I just have so many questions and so many things that I need to answer for you guys too, that I could talk for a whole entire year just to the camera to give you guys a better understanding of certain topics that you're, questioning or have, the thoughts about really. With that being said, we'll answer some questions from my school community. And I actually answered a few of them already, which was really nice. Because they all kind of knew that this was coming, and people have been begging me for about a year and change to be making this podcast. All to say, the first question that we have is, give me some sort of like nuggets about Bailey or some sort of fun facts about Bailey. And I think if you guys don't if you guys don't get to know me, how am I relatable as a content creator or a podcaster, whatever you want to call me. But some fun facts about me, and I feel like these are just fun and natural anyway, but it's, we'll start with just like my family because I feel like that's the most important thing. Is if you guys don't know, I have two dogs. I just got a second dog and she's been running my life. Her name is Millie the Menace currently, because she gets up at like 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. and me and my husband have been like swapping on and off. It's basically like having a child. So we have two German Shepherds. We love them to pieces and they are honestly fantastic. They're just great dogs all the way around. A lot of you guys actually see them on my TikTok every single week, or I'm running around my house trying to get them to settle down. So that's just a big part of my life. Fun fact about me there too. But one thing that I do love that a lot of people actually know about me, which is fun, is I love ice cream. Ice cream is one of my indulgence, my vices, might you say, in my life. And my favorite flavor is mint. I love mint ice cream. Love me or hate me. You can leave it in the comments, whatever you guys feel about. But I do love a good mint ice cream, specifically the Tillamook ice cream. It's because it's not dyed with that green stuff. So, you know what I'm saying? I'll just say it's the best ice cream. I will probably have it on occasion from, 2 to 3 to maybe 4 times per week. It just depends on my week that I'm having. Don't judge a girl for having her vices. Another fun fact about me too is I played college volleyball. So I did that for obviously 4 years. I loved it. I traveled a lot in my younger years, probably from ages like 15 to 18. I was on a national team and just was very, per se, athletic in the volleyball department. I was a setter, something that I just had so much passion for and really shaped me as a person. I think kind of growing into my younger 20s, obviously into where I am now, which is in my later 20s, which has been super cool to see. But I love that part of my life. I will say some of my favorite activities that I like to do. We have snowmobiles, we have side by sides, we have, my husband just bought a dirt bike. He came home one day and said, "Hey, I bought a dirt bike." So we're low key adrenaline junkies, which is really fun because there's just always something to be doing then in the Midwest. And you guys know I live in Minnesota now. So you kind of have to have things to do in the winter, spring, summer, or else you just kind of get bored a little bit. So we're definitely adrenaline junkies. We like all the things that basically have a motor in it, and we just like to have fun. We go up north. There's 10,000 lakes here. Some would beg to differ that there's more. Some would beg to differ that there are less, but there are lots of lakes here, and we spend a lot of our summers in the lake, which is really fun too. Just a few fun Q&As really about me. And I'm super excited to just dive deeper with you guys into the next podcast. The next one will be a bit more structured, really giving you guys, and I'll ask in my school community. So if you guys want your input, feel free to get connected in there. It's $10 a month. There's just so much information in there. Basically, every single thing that is in my brain is in that like app. So I continually keep adding stuff in there. I'm going to dive into lots of things. So we'll kind of pick and choose different topics that I feel like are beneficial for you guys and where we kind of want to start. But the next one will be more structured and I'll give you guys just more information per se. But this one was really just about getting to know me better. I'm really getting to understand who I am as a person, what really drives me as a human, and then also like the reason why I started doing content. I feel like people know me best for being Biohack with Bales, but I'm just Bailey, or I'm just B, or I'm Bales at home. And I just love what I get to do every single day. So, with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, share with people that you feel like would really benefit from this because we're going to be diving a lot deeper in our next episodes. And I'm just so happy that you guys are here. As always, make sure you do something that you love. Make sure you spend some time with someone that you love and get yourself a sweet treat. Obviously, mine is ice cream. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.